Welcome to Royal Rebounds TV with Calvin and Barry. Just two crazy fans of the Sacramento Kings and they sharing their opinion. So be sure that you subscribe. It's for the fans, by the fans. Whether you chilling on the couch or wilding in the stand. For laid back conversations about the Kings, subscribe here. Staying down until we come up thinking this gonna be our year. We're here drinking beer, talking about the Kings. Be sure you subscribe so you can hear that bell ring. Yeah.
What's up, Kings fans? Welcome back to Royal Rebounds and another Royal Rebounds podcast live with Calvin and Barry. This is the Sacramento Kings YouTube channel for fans by fans.
Yeah, welcome to another episode of the Royal Rebounds podcast. Today, Kings lose again on the road in Denver. We're back breaking it down. Barry and I will talk more trade talk, everyone's favorite discussion when it comes to the Sacramento Kings. You got anything else?
Yeah, we'll be right back with Nightcap. All right, we're here. I'm drinking a beer by myself.
No beer for me.
And we're talking about the Sacramento Kings. If you're a Kings fan, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you enjoy content like this, consider subscribing to the channel. This is your Sacramento Kings Nightcap. So, Cal, Kings lose tonight 121-111 to the Denver Nuggets. Both teams were on a two-game losing streak. Kings swept the series last season, including a buzzer beater by Buddy Hield. Metu's out. This is his third straight game missed. Holmes is missing his fourth consecutive game. No Jamal Murray. No Michael Porter Jr. No Mike Malone. No problem for the Denver Nuggets. Popeye Jones led this squad to a victory tonight. And I don't know how the hell you're supposed to beat a team with a coach named Popeye.
Yeah, well, it didn't matter who was coaching the Nuggets tonight. I don't think the Kings would have had much success. They flat out couldn't stop anyone. They totally had no energy, no effort in this game. You know, I was taking a bunch of notes in the first half trying to figure out where the Kings could get better, and my notes just completely took a dive as it went into the second half. The last things I wrote down were it's the Jeff Green show to start the third and fourth quarter, or end the third and start the fourth quarter, and then the very last thing I wrote was Kings look defeated. They really just did by the end of it there.
Yeah,
especially De'Aaron Fox. And I feel for him because he had another great game. But, again, we talk about leadership all the time. That's when your leaders are supposed to come through for you, you know, when things are tough, not when things are easy.
Very true, very true. Lots of runs in this game by both teams. The Kings started off very, very slow to this game, and they allowed probably a season high in fast break points for the Denver Nuggets. I think this Denver team is what, 27th in pace in the league or something like that. And they had pretty much their average in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Kings were able to go on a 10-0 run to bring themselves somewhat back in the game. And then all of a sudden the Nuggets flip the script. They go on a 12-0 run, back up again. Kings are down 20 early in this game. Nuggets completely dominate in the paint. It helps when you have a guy like Jokic who's doing everything out there. Kings go on another 17-9 run to bring it close again. They make another run in the third quarter. They make another run in the fourth quarter, but it just is not enough. Kings lose tonight. And I know you look at the final box score, but I don't think this game was even close.
No, it really never was. The Kings just dug themselves way too big of a hole early on. You know, part of it was not the greatest matchup. I mean, Jokic is such a good player, and defending him is no easy task, but the Kings made it more difficult on themselves than they needed to. And then you got to contest shots. I mean, the Nuggets don't have a ton. Michael Porter Jr. is a really good outside shooter, but he wasn't on the court tonight. Outside of that, they don't have a ton of really high percentage three-point shooters. But if you give these guys enough open looks, they're going to knock them down, as we saw with Bones Hyland and Will Barton. I mean, those guys are in the pros for a reason. I feel like we say that almost nightly when we're talking about a Kings game. It's kind of embarrassing after a while. But yeah, I mean, you just have to be better defensively.
Yeah, I mean, simple as that. Want to give a couple of shout outs. Mike, I see you in the chat. Makami, Joseph, thank you all for joining us. I know it's another tough game of Kings basketball, but we appreciate all your support. And we appreciate you guys coming to join us for group therapy after every Kings game, win or lose. I saw Mo Harkless tweak his ankle in the fourth quarter in this game. I don't know how that's really going to affect him. You know, he's played great defense for the Kings, but he hasn't really been there offensively, at least consistency for the team. I feel like this guy averages more time yelling at players than he does playing time on the court.
Well, unfortunately, the Kings need that. So in that regard, he's actually pretty valuable for this team.
And he can do that with a bum ankle. So
he certainly can. Certainly can.
As we mentioned, Richaun Holmes and Metu are both out in COVID protocols. The Kings definitely need them back. We saw a bunch of playing time tonight for Alex Len. They threw Tristan Thompson in there to try and help with the Joker. But this guy is just too good, man. He is just too good.
He's incredibly skilled. Even when you play good defense on him, just because of his sheer size and his amazing touch around the rim, he's able to get shots to fall for him consistently. I just didn't think the Kings had a good enough game plan against him defensively. It takes more than just putting a big guy on him. You know, that's why Alex Len played so much tonight, was because he was physically the best matchup that the Kings had. I would have liked to have seen Keita actually get a few minutes of run at him. You know, he's got 6 fouls. You might as well use him. He's a big body, good rim protector. Mm-hmm. I was, you know, especially if you're down big, I thought they could have thrown him out there. But that's beside the point. You know, defending the pick and roll has been a real big problem for the Kings all season long, and it was really, really a problem for them tonight. And when you play against a guy like Jokic, who can kill you in so many different ways. He can post. He can hit the three. Mm-hmm. He can find people when you double him. You know, the Kings just didn't have a good enough game plan in terms of where the double team was going to come from, how quickly it was going to come from, and they also let him get too much space. You know, Alex Len, your instinct when you're a big man playing in the pick and roll is to immediately sag off, you know, back into the middle of the key, so you're there for help. You're there if the guard gets beat on the initial drive. But there were so many occasions tonight where whoever it was, that guard coming off the pick and roll, he didn't have his man beat. Alex Len is way, way back, sunk into the paint, and leaves Joker wide open out on the three-point line. Mm-hmm. He's one of the only centers in the league that you can't give that much space to. And Alex Len is not fast-footed enough to cover enough ground to get back to him and then cover the drive. We saw him get into foul trouble that way. It was just really unfortunate.
He's a hard guy to stop,
Incredibly
man.
hard.
He can make that three.
But you have to be, that's where you have to be smarter about how you play him.
Yeah. And, you know, he can make that three. And then, as you said, once you respect the three and you get out to him, he just drives by you or into you and gets a foul called on you, which is unfortunate. You know, one of my major knocks on Jokic is, you know, he's not the best defensive player. And you look at this Kings team, you look at a guy like Richaun Holmes, we talk about all the good things that he can do, but he's not really a stopper, stuff like that. But the thing with Jokic is he puts so much pressure on you offensively that he doesn't really need to affect the game on the defensive end of the floor, because all your bigs are either in foul trouble or they're so exhausted just chasing after him. And it's crazy. You look at the guy and how big he is. Like, he does not look like he's in the best shape. But he does it every single night. He puts up 30-point triple-doubles. He just kills your team. You know, I remember that play. What was it? Markieff Morris ran into him, and Jokic pushed him down afterwards.
Yeah, he's still out.
It's been over 30 games. Yeah. Yes. And I was watching that video again the other day because I know Markieff tweeted about it, about how a fat man ran into me and all this stuff. Yeah. And, you know, I don't condone anything that either of those guys did, but all I have to say is you hit him first, man.
He did.
It was a retaliation because you hit him and then turned your head and walked away like a dumbass.
Yeah, you know, Jokic he's not anywhere near as physically dominant as Shaq was, but they experience the same problems. You know, Shaq was hit so much on every single play. Yep. It's a miracle that he never killed anybody on the court, you know, just out of pure frustration. And Jokic is very similar in that regard. He gets hit constantly over and over and over again because he's so skilled that one of the only ways to stop him is to be as physical as possible. And obviously on that night, his frustration got the better of him.
And when you're that big, a hit on you doesn't look like it does much, but it still hurts.
That was more than just a hit. He was running pretty much full speed for him.
Yeah.
You know, that'll definitely leave a mark.
Markieff's hit was way dirtier than Jokic's, in my opinion. Other than the fact that he wasn't paying attention.
They were both dirty.
But
they were both dirty.
Yeah. I guess an eye for an eye, the whole world goes blind, right? All right. So what would you like to do? Jump into keys or box score?
Let's go keys first, and then we'll do box score.
Okay.
Just because, you know, again, the keys to the game were a total miss. So we'll fly through them here. Number one is play with pace. The Kings, I don't know what's happened to them over the past week, 2 weeks or so, but they really don't look to push the ball very much anymore. They are, or coming into the game, they were still 5th in the league in pace at over 103 possessions a game. Denver's 26th at under 100 possessions a game. But the Nuggets killed Sacramento in transition today. Absolutely killed them. Jokic beat most of the Kings up the floor on a lot of plays tonight. He might be the slowest player in the league. Definitely one of the bottom 5, I would say. So that's just unacceptable. Number 2 is block out Jokic. The Kings were out-rebounded tonight. Actually, I'm sorry. The Kings were not out-rebounded, and they really did a good job on the offensive glass, which was kind of my point about making sure that you block out Jokic, because outside of him, the Nuggets don't have a ton of really good rebounders. And then number 3 was attack Jokic. Fox and Halliburton, they did it a little bit in the first quarter, but they got away from it, and I felt like this was something they needed to just keep hammering all game long. Pick and roll with Jokic, get him. He doesn't really switch onto the guard. He just plays, you know, kind of like a zone defense sitting back there in the middle. De'Aaron Fox, that mid-range jumper was going down all night long. I felt like he could have gotten a lot of easier shots in the first half, right around the foul line, just from a simple pick-and-roll action. And, you know, you got to make a guy that good in Jokic work harder on the defensive end, and they didn't do that tonight.
Yep. And running up and down the court and controlling the pace of this game would have helped Sacramento as well. It felt like the Nuggets almost beat the Kings in their own game, because the Nuggets were pushing the pace in this game, and they basically controlled this entire game. All right, Cal, let's go to box score.
Let's do it. It's a shame. Another fantastic game for De'Aaron Fox, but we really can't praise him too much. 30 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. He only had 2 turnovers as well with how much the ball was in his hands. 11 of 23 from the floor, 8 of 10 at the foul line. He checked all the boxes tonight. Harrison Barnes, 9 points, 9 rebounds. Marvin Bagley, another pretty solid game for him, 12 points and 5 rebounds. Tyrese, I didn't think looked for his shot enough, especially early on in the game. 14 points is what he finishes with, 4 of 5 from 3 and 6 more assists. And then Alex Len playing big minutes off the bench, 18 points, 10 rebounds. Nobody else really with a stat line that really pops out to you. Another struggle bus game for Davion Mitchell, 3 of 12 from the floor, 8 points. And Buddy Hield, 2 of 9 from the floor, 2 of 7 from 3, 7 points.
Yeah, and most of those shots by Davion were late in the game too, when it was pretty much over. As far as the Nuggets go, Jokic almost a triple-double tonight, 33, 10, and 7. 2 steals, 2 blocks. He really filled up the stat sheet.
He sure did.
Other than him, you know, there's not much to write home about. You know, Jeff Green, 18 points for him off the bench. I thought he played a wonderful game, considering this is his 14th season in the NBA, and he was getting dunks and hitting threes all night long.
It was really mostly about how easy the baskets were for Denver tonight. They were running some great plays. They're a really good half-court offensive team, and when you have somebody like Jokic, who's basically a point guard at 7 feet tall, that makes it really, really difficult to defend, because you can do so many different things with him, you know, offensively. But the Kings just no initial effort. They're so bad, so bad at stopping drives.
Yep.
So bad at it. And when you can't stop the initial drive, it doesn't matter how good the rest of your defense is. These NBA teams are just going to pick you apart. They'll find the open guy, and it's just a question of whether or not the shots go in. And tonight for Denver, they did.
Yep. Shout out Sean. Shout out Kristen. I see you guys in the chat. Thank you guys for joining us. We really appreciate it. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about Tyrese Halliburton. 29 minutes tonight. I thought he shot great. 4 for 5 from three-point range, 14 points, 6 assists. You mentioned he didn't really look enough to get his shot tonight. I just feel like this is something we've talked about over and over again, where it seems like when De'Aaron Fox has a good game offensively, Tyrese Halliburton doesn't. And not that Tyrese had a bad game tonight, because he was very efficient. I loved everything he did on the court. Only one turnover, which is great. But it just makes me wonder again, like, how do we get these guys to coexist? How can we make sure that they both can take control of this game? I didn't see the stagger in minutes as much tonight as we did in a lot of those other games. I saw a 3-guard lineup on the court with like Fox, Buddy, and Davion, I think at one point where Tyrese was resting. But, Tyrese doesn't have the ball enough. I don't think he has the ball enough. And I thought that Fox had a great game tonight, but I think Tyrese needs the ball a little bit more.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I also think he just needs to be, he was so aggressive looking for a shot when De'Aaron Fox had to miss those games in health and safety protocol. And that's, obvious that he would be looking to score more. The Kings, outside of those two guys, they just don't have enough help from anyone else. So if I'm coaching this team, I'm looking at both of them and saying, yeah, Tyrese, I know one of your best skills is to distribute and to, find open shots for other guys, but we really need you to score right now. The Kings were such a good offensive team early on in this season, and that has really fallen off as of late. But De'Aaron Fox is still putting together a ton of points. I mean, he has well over 100 points in his last 4 games, but he's not getting any help from anybody else. And Tyrese is still shooting really efficiently, but it's just he's got to up the number of field goal attempts he takes. These two guys, they're all the Kings have right now.
Yep.
And they need to be the driving force. They need to play more like Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I just, I'd like to see them both be more aggressive. And it's hard to say that for De'Aaron Fox. He had 10 free throws tonight, made 8 of them, 30 points. I want to see him even more aggressive, because when he's aggressive, it gives easier shots to all these other guys. And I want Tyrese to have the ball in his hands more, and I want him to be more aggressive. And I don't know if those two things are possible at the same time. I like to think that they are, but, I'd like to see more from Tyrese Halliburton. And as you said, he needs to take more shots. I don't know if it's just the flow of the offense. I don't know if it's what the game plan is. But we've seen some great play from him, and he just seems to be handicapped at the moment.
Well, he's just such an unselfish player. It's always the first thought in his head is find the open man.
Mm-hmm.
But he's got to start looking at the whole court and saying, I'm so open right here. I need to take this mid-range shot.
Yep.
I mean, he still gets up enough threes, I would say, over the course of a game. If he's somewhere in the 3 to 5, 6 attempt range per game, I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
He shoots so well that maybe you would say you even want him to take more, but somewhere in there, 3 to 6, I think is great. He's got to up the number of shots he gets closer to the rim.
Yeah, and he needs to get to the line.
Yeah.
He definitely needs to get to the line. Looking at the team stats tonight, there's a few things that stuck out to me. First off, Denver shot 55% from the field, which is not good.
Lots of dunks.
Hard to win NBA games when they're shooting that well. And they only shot 62% from the free throw line. They missed a ton of free throws. They dominated in assists, 32, 21. Turnovers, 12 for the Sacramento Kings, 8 for the Nuggets. But the real big difference in this game are points in the paint.
Oh, yeah.
70 points in the paint for the Denver Nuggets. That is just incredible.
It is. And this is a team that doesn't score anywhere near that many points in the paint, usually.
Yeah.
The Kings have only allowed 70 or more points in the paint 3 times this season. The other 2 times it came both against the Memphis Grizzlies, who are one of the best, if not the best, paint scoring teams in the entire league. So, those games you can sit back and say, okay, well, that is too much to give up, but you understand why when you play a team like Memphis. Against Denver, there's just no resistance whatsoever.
Yep, exactly. So we saw Marvin Bagley start again tonight. What'd you like? What'd you dislike from Marvin Bagley?
The same stuff. Marvin, his activity on the offensive boards has been so great. I think he is picking and choosing his spots a little bit more offensively. He's kind of handicapped into what he can do offensively because the way that the Kings run their offense, they don't run plays for him necessarily.
Yeah.
They leave him out in the corner so that he either has an open look for three or he's got a great lane to crash for an offensive rebound. He's just not knocking down the threes whatsoever. I mean, I can't even remember the last time he hit a three, actually. It's been a while.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's true.
I think I would like to see maybe them run a little more pick and roll between him and De'Aaron Fox. It could at least get him an open look that isn't a corner three. Maybe it's a, 15 to 17 foot mid-range shot, or it gives him an opportunity to dive to get to the basket, maybe get to the free throw line. I think they need to be a little bit more creative about the types of spots they put him in on offense to better utilize him, because he's one of the few guys that is actually, in terms of energy and effort, he's given you everything you need. You just want to get a little bit more offensive scoring from him.
Yeah, and he's a scorer. That's what he does. But if you don't run plays for him, you don't give him the ball in the right spot, then he's basically handicapped as well, just like Tyrese Halliburton. Now I want to talk about a few more guys. Damian Jones, very disappointed in him tonight. Well, not in him, just the overall flow of the game. And he only played 8 minutes. He was in foul trouble. He does not match up well against the Joker at all. He's a pretty small guy.
Almost nobody does, though.
Yeah,
so.
but he was taken to school.
He was.
He's got a lot to learn from this game.
He was. This was definitely a humble, eat your humble pie, as the Patriots like to say, moment.
Or welcome to the NBA.
Yeah.
They say you can have more than one of those moments.
Oh, yes. You can definitely have more than one of those moments. But, yeah, he got off to a tough start. I don't think he was totally ready, which, that's on him. You should be ready for how physical of a game it's going to be when you play Jokic. But he got into foul trouble early. That threw him off for the rest of the game because his rhythm's out. He doesn't play the normal minutes or the normal rotations. He didn't come back into the game until well into the third quarter when they went to start Alex Len in the second half. So from there, it's just hard for you to get into a rhythm again. And when you're playing against such a physical guy on top of that, he was just like the Kings. He dug himself a huge hole that he couldn't climb out of.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those pump your brake games for him, where everyone was getting so high on Damian Jones. They're like, we don't even need Richaun Holmes anymore. Damian Jones is a great young player, a lot of potential. He can do things that Richaun can't. And then you kind of remember, well, this guy is still really young and he still has a lot to learn. And games like this, I think, will help propel him to be a better player in the future. But, you definitely take your lumps in games like this. I mean, there's so many guys I'm disappointed in this game, but let's talk about Harrison Barnes next. 34 minutes for him tonight, second in the team in minutes, 3 of 8 shooting, 9 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists. I just feel like I don't even know what to expect out of Mr. Consistency anymore, Harrison Barnes.
Yeah, he's really fallen off the map a lot. And I think part of it is because they don't look to get him as many shots within the offense anymore. He's more of a he's always been a role player on this team, but now he's really more of a just hit the glass and
he's
offensive
like a glue
rebound
guy. Yeah.
They run isolation plays for him sometimes. I think they should try to post him up more. I also think De'Aaron Fox should post up more. We can maybe talk about that later if you want, but I think going into next offseason, De'Aaron Fox has really got to work on his post-up game. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he needs to work on his outside shot as well to make that more of a weapon for him, but he's got all the tools to be one of the best post-up guards in the league. I think he could really use that to his advantage, and I also think they could use Harrison Barnes there a little bit more too, but it just goes back to what I said earlier, that the Kings outside of Tyrese and De'Aaron Fox, they can't count on any of these guys for night in, night out contributions. And that's part of the reason why they really have been struggling. They need to fix their problems on the defensive end first and foremost. But if you're not going to guard anybody, you better score a ton of points.
Yeah.
And offensively, they struggle to do that right now as well.
Yeah, I mean, we keep talking about these guys that are struggling, and, you know, what do we keep saying? Oh, there's not plays run for them. Oh, they're not put in the right positions. And that just goes right into coaching and game plan. And, like, what is this team's system? What are they trying to do here? What are they running? What kind of offense is this? If you were to ask me, you know, what the Kings' offense was, honestly, at this point, I can't really tell you. I had a much clearer vision when Luke Walton was the coach, and not, you know, saying that I want Luke Walton back or anything like that. But I felt like when Luke Walton was coach, I knew what they were trying to do. Now it just seems like if you were to ask them what they're trying to do, they're just going to say, try and win the basketball game. Yeah. But they don't really have much of a game plan. So, you know, you see a guy like Harrison Barnes have 5 shots one night, 8 shots the next night, 12 shots another night. And then you'll see guys like Buddy Hield have amazing outputs one night, and then the next night he'll only get, you know, a few shots. And that's got to be hard on the players too, is having this consistency. How can they be consistent when the game plan's not consistent and the flow of the offense is not consistent and they're not getting some of the same looks or the same amount of shots every single game?
Yeah, definitely. It's really hard as a rhythm shooter to be effective every night when you don't get the same number of looks. Or even the same types of looks throughout the course of a game. And a lot of that is just because of how good De'Aaron Fox is in isolation. It really slows everything down. You know, guys start standing around and just watching instead of cutting and moving. And so it just goes back to what we talked about, you know, a month or two ago when Tyrese Haliburton was starting to really pick things up. It seems like this team is 2 different teams within itself. They have you know, the give it to De'Aaron and get out of his way offense, which it's hard to argue that isn't effective because he's been scoring a ton of points lately.
Yep.
But what kind of impact does that have on your team as a whole is another story. And then how can you switch gears so quickly to putting it into Tyrese Haliburton's hand and running a more traditional offense where there's movement, there's pick and roll, you're looking for open guys outside. It can be very difficult to adjust to that mid-game or even mid-quarter for a team.
Yep. Yeah, and Kristen, it's not that we hate Harrison Barnes, because we don't hate Harrison Barnes at all. We both agree that he was one of the most consistent players on this Kings roster, you know, over the last couple of years. But, you know, he's making $20 million this year. He's making $18 million next year. With that comes a lot of responsibility. He's supposed to have a leadership role on this team. And he started out this season really hot, just like last year, and he just seems to have tapered off and kind of ends up into this middle land where we don't really know what to expect from him. I can't even tell you, is he the 3rd, 4th best player on this team? I don't really know at this point. And, you know, it's not so much to do with Harrison Barnes as the person or the player. It's the system and how they're utilizing him and what we're supposed to expect from him at this, because the output versus how much he's costing at this point is not weighing out.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that completely.
Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about this game before we move on here?
No, not really. I mean, I mentioned my, you know, bit there about De'Aaron Fox needing to post up more. I really think that would benefit him and the Kings a lot. I think they could run a lot of different looks out of that. You could still have Tyrese up at the top of the key. You know, if Fox gets doubled or something like that, he can kick it out to him. That leads to a drive or an open shot for Tyrese or somebody else. And, you know, De'Aaron, so much was made coming into this offseason about the weight that he had put on. You know, I feel like if he can even get a little bit more weight on him, go to the, you know, Kobe Bryant school of posting up for guards or whatever. He worked with Hakeem Olajuwon for a long time. That could be a really, really just valuable asset to his game, especially for somebody that struggles to shoot from the outside so much.
Yeah, I agree. What'd you think about that flagrant 1 foul on Alex Len in the fourth quarter?
That's just the way that they're officiating it these days. They're going to go to the replay, and if they see any contact made towards the head, face, or neck that isn't even remotely close to the ball, they're going to call it a flagrant 1 every time. I don't think you can really argue with that.
Yeah, it's a much different basketball game than it was just 5 or 10 years ago. And you know what's funny? You look at Jokic throughout the whole game, I swear it always looks like he has a bloody nose. Like, it doesn't matter what point of the game it is or whether he got hit or not. Like, his face is red, his nose is all red. I'm always like, what's going on with his nose?
He works hard out there, I guess,
He does work hard. He does work really hard. That's funny. All right, looks like people are starting to talk about trades here in the chat. Yeah, so McCamey Harrison Barnes was a role player on that Warriors championship team. Tristan Thompson was a role player on that championship team as well. But, what you forgot is both of those teams had arguably the top 2, if not top 3 best players in the NBA at the time. Perennial all-stars. This Kings team doesn't have that. You need good players to surround with good role players. And this Kings team just doesn't have 1, 2, and 3rd option to go to surround with these role players. So when you bring in good role players like Harrison Barnes and Tristan Thompson that are a little overpaid and you're expecting so much out of them, you're not going to get the results that you want.
No, he's not Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right?
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we'll dive deeper into your Sacramento Kings with Around the Crown.